Hello and welcome to the video. In this video I'll be sharing my tried and tested recipe and methods for brewing a pastry stout without the need for lactose. This has been done without compromise to the end beer and is in keeping with the style, so I consider this a win. This video guide will take you through the steps of brewing this as well as explain the recipe in full before ending with a look at the end beer and my tasting notes. So let's get started. This one deserves a quick introduction, so here it is. I have to be honest and say that my early tastings of this style really did not impress my taste buds. Many were sickly sweet and contained flavours that I really did not feel had a place in beer, which provided a combination that I simply did not appreciate at all. As time has gone on though, I have tasted some pastry stouts that I feel nailed the style and provided something acceptable to not only my taste buds but to those of many. This recipe that I'm providing here seeks the same mass appeal, and this is widened further by being suitable for those that are lactose intolerant too. Some of you may want to add in some rhubarb and custard or peaches and cream flavouring too, if that's your thing, but I would urge you to try this as is first before doing so. Let's now go through the steps to brewing this in order. Here is a sneak preview of my recipe's vital statistics. As you can see, this recipe offers an approximate 8.7% ABV and a BU-GU ratio of just 0.20, highlighting how sweet it is, but certainly this is not sickly sweet, which to my mind was the main thing to avoid here. This recipe, like all of my shared recipes, is written by me and can be found in full within the video's description, which is underneath the video window when viewed on a desktop computer. Like all of my shared recipes, this recipe is very tried and tested, so that you can brew this with confidence. You will also find a link to the full recipe on Brewhouse, which can be used free of charge with some restrictions. For the very best results and so that you're actually brewing the recipe as intended, I strongly suggest that your initial steps will be to convert the recipe before ordering in your ingredients. I have an easy guide to doing this on Brewhouse on my channel, as shown on screen now. Within this video, this recipe is being brewed using a Gen 4 Brewzilla 65 to the volume of 10 litres, or approximately 2.64 US liquid gallons, but as part of the conversion process, this can be scaled and shaped to suit your own brewing system and volume requirements. I must stress that recipe conversion is an essential part of the process for the intended results. Do note that this applies to all recipes you'll obtain from others, not just mine. I also strongly recommend that you plan your water profile ahead. After all, beer is mostly water and its balance is important. If you're a beginner, you would be excluded if you skip this for now, but this is certainly an important direction to move into for the very best results later on. Shown on screen is the water profile that I used in developing this recipe, which is found on Brewhouse, which is simply ideal for dark styles. As this is a dark style, you can also have your pH tweaked higher than usual, and I would recommend aiming between 5.4 to 5.7 pH. For this recipe we also have some pre-brew preparation to take care of our cocoa nibs. Add your nibs into a clean and sanitary jar and add in an alcohol of your choice. Vodka is certainly fine if you want no extra flavour. Ensure that you just use pure spirits though, not spirits that contain cream like Baileys for example. Do this up to a week before your intended brew day, but at least 4 days before. Let's now move on to the brew itself, starting with the mash, and here is a look at the grain involved here. This begins with adding our grain into the brewing system, which is preheated to our first mash step, temperature. More on this soon. Personally, I have added all of the dark grain for this recipe into the mash right from the start, but if you prefer your stouts ultra smooth, then you could hold back the dark grain and add it in the closing 15 minutes of the mash. However, there are two important points to note. Firstly, you will note that one of the chocolate malts here is Carafa Special III from Wyoming, which is dehusked, so as such will be smooth by design. If you prefer a smoother beer, then you could simply make the other regular Carafa III in this recipe, also the special version, and then these can be mashed from the start. So in this case you would simply hold back the black malt and the crystal malt. I have highlighted these on screen just to make it very clear. However, this leads me to point 2, which is that I suggest that before you do this, please try the first batch as is, as this grain has been balanced as part of this recipe's design. Let's now go through these malts and explain what they're there for. This begins with our base malt of Morris Otter, which provides the bulk of our fermentables. This malt offers some extra flavour compared to regular pale ale malts and is recommended over regular pale ale if you can obtain it or something similar. At 15% of our grist we have Munich malt, which will add in some extra malty flavours that will contribute to sweetness. Then also at 15% we have flaked oats, which are there to provide a silky texture that will help this beer sing. At 8% we have dark crystal malt, which will impart a rich caramel sweet flavour along with raisin and burnt sugar. This crystal malt will also add in body and improve head retention. Then we have our two Carafa malts, which are both chocolate malts. The special version is dehusked, which removes bitterness, and then the regular version has it still there. These two malts provide much chocolate and coffee flavouring along with a balance of sweetness and bitterness. Then lastly at 2% we have black malt, which adds in a rich roasted yet also fruity flavour that is laced with currants and sultanas plus some blackberry. The other great thing about black malt for this recipe is that it also offers good balancing by adding a little perceived bitterness too. Let's now look at the mash schedule. This recipe has one single step for a 60-minute mash, which is held at 76 degrees Celsius, which is the equivalent of 149 degrees Fahrenheit. This high temperature is used in this recipe to help produce the desired sweetness. At this temperature level, the conversion of starches into sugar will be very fast, and at the same time it will help build rich unfermentable sugars. I still recommend a 60-minute mash though for ease, though you may find that the work is done in 30 to 40 minutes if you want to do an iodine test for remaining starches. As I'm sure you can see, this recipe produces a very deep dark brown wort, which will appear black in a glass. Due to the high mash in temperature, there is no need for a mash out step. After the mash, I raised the malt pipe and performed an evenly distributed sparge over the entire grain bed. The system temperature was set to ramp up to the boil as soon as I raised the malt pipe to save time. Let's now look at the boil. In keeping with the modern boil time, I am staying with 30 minutes here. However, if you enjoy a much thicker stout experience, then by all means boil for longer. The difference here will not be dramatic unless the change is dramatic, and certainly some love the results of a boil that runs for several hours. This will mean that you will need to match your hops IBU of 19 for the new timing, and by doing so you will save a small amount of hops, at the cost of more electricity and time though, of course. I'm using a British bittering hop here called Pilot, which can add some lemon and spice to the aroma of some recipes, but the effects are not generally experienced by the drinker with this one due to the strength of the other flavours and aromas, so feel free to sub these hops with something neutral or something you simply have to hand if you cannot obtain Pilot. After cooling the wort, I then pitch my yeast, which in this case is a co-fermentation of Verdant and Voss. The Verdant is there for its tropical fruit flavours and pronounced apricot, whereas the Voss is there for a reduced conditioning time. In general, I find that this recipe is ready to drink very quickly when Voss is used. Without it, then a couple of months seems to be about right for my taste buds due to the alcohol level and flavours. Within this recipe, neither of these yeast types will ferment dry, and on average I've seen a final gravity of between 1.030 to 1.032, which is a shade higher than Brewfather's prediction. For this recipe I recommend a fermentation temperature of 23 degrees Celsius, which is approximately 73 degrees Fahrenheit. This will give Verdant enough time to get its fruity esters and aromas in place, but generally this first part of the fermentation is over and done with in 4 to 5 days at the most, so no real need to think about putting this one under pressure at this stage at least. Once this first fermentation is close to final gravity within approximately 5 points, then it's time to grab your Muscovado sugar. This sugar is added at this point to maximise on its flavour potential. I am using the light version here, but darker ones will also work great. The difference is essentially the amount of molasses, so the light version has less treacle flavouring compared to the dark. Let your own taste buds guide you here. This Billington's brand gets my vote, but go for the one that you can obtain locally that hopefully you enjoy the taste of. You will then need to gradually add this sugar to some lightly boiling water next. I took 1 litre from my sparge water to account for this, but if you forget, then it's just the difference of 0.5% of alcohol, which will not really get noticed in this recipe. As you add the sugar, make sure you stir it in so that it all dissolves. After this, allow the resulting mixture to cool. You can accelerate this if you wish. As someone who lives in Norway, there are many perks to living here, and part of this is a natural way of cooling things. Once cooled, add your mixture into your fermenter and allow this second part of the fermentation to complete. We then need to come back to our cocoa nibs. For this step I recommend a second jar and a hop sock, or at least some sort of bag that will keep our cocoa nibs in place. Before using this jar and bag, it is totally essential that you clean it using a brewery wash kind of cleaner, then totally rinse with water and then use a sanitizer. During the whole process, if you touch anything else but the bag, then you will need to wash your hands again or use a hand sanitizer. You will then need to transfer the entire contents of your first jar into the second jar, ensuring that all cocoa nibs go into the bag. You should then tie a knot in your bag, and you are then ready for adding this into your fermenter. When you add this liquid and bag, ensure that you do not splash and are very gentle, and all will be just fine. The time that you will leave this infusing further is really a question of taste, but ideal times now are between 7 to 14 days. After this point you can transfer into a keg or bottles, leaving the cocoa nibs and bag behind. Let's now look at the end beer from this particular brew along with my tasting notes, starting with a close-up look at the pour and then the same pour with a focus on the full glass. This beer is a nice deep brown colour on the pour, but set black in bulk in the glass with a beautiful tan head. This beer has been in the keg for less than 2 weeks at the point that you see it here. This beer has also been under 12 psi of pressure, which is 0.83 bars for this time, and I'm using this pressure for serving too. Due to the co-fermentation with kveik, it already tastes very similar to a more mature glass of this, but I will improvise a little by doing the tasting with some of my previous batch notes at Wig 6, which shared the exact same final recipe. I should also mention that temperature is vital for a beer of this type. Too cold and you will miss much of the more subtle flavours, and that would be a great shame. Here are my tasting notes, starting with aroma. The aroma here is very much of chocolate and caramel, along with some subtle background fruity notes that range from tropical to dark fruit. On entry, this is very much full of chocolate and body, followed by a variety of medium sweet caramel and some creamy impressions. Texture here is silky and very smooth, and the finish is very light and easy. There is nothing bitter in the slightest here, and there is nothing very sweet either. Due to the way that this is balanced, there is really no alcohol notes at all to be found. The chocolate flavour is varied and ranges from being on the sweet side to neutral. There are small amounts of burnt flavours and some raisin in there too, which is nicely complemented by a range of different sweet caramels. But hey, that's the fun thing about things that are taste orientated, we all taste things differently. In keeping with my usual approach, none of my tasters were told anything about this beer before tasting it. When asked what style of stout this was, I often heard back that it was either a sweet stout or a pastry stout that actually tastes good due to the flavours and a lack of sickly sweetness. I should also mention that this is dangerously drinkable, and it is very easy to drink more than a cup a little too fast for something that is almost 9% ABV. My final impression is that this is a pastry stout with the right level of balance to attract many more people than the usual offering. Just be careful with this one due to the alcohol and drinkability. If you do brew this one and are happy to share your tasting notes, then I would be very grateful if you could do so in the comments section of this video with notes that include any changes and the conditioning time that you are making the notes from. I would recommend that you do this no earlier than 1 month after transfer into a keg or bottles if you use kveik. If you just use Verdant, then a 3-month period is advisable at least. The ideal tasting temperature is at least 10 degrees Celsius or 50 degrees Fahrenheit. I do hope that you found this video useful, informative and interesting. If so, why not consider liking and subscribing? For further support you can join the channel's Facebook group, and if you would like to support the channel then check out the channel's merchandise store, as all profits go back into the channel. Until next time, happy brewing!